Ever since I bought my SCL500, this has been my most requested video by far. We are finally getting rid of this gigantic, hideous fender in favor of something more sleek and sexy. That's it. That's the intro. We're not wasting any time. Let's jump straight into it and check out the new fender delete that we got. But first, make sure to subscribe if you're new here. I'll wait, I said to subscribe. Okay, here's the fender delete that I found on eBay. Comes with everything that we need, or at least it should. This is gonna be the tail light and turn signals, and then the fender delete itself comes in 3 pieces. It did come wrapped up really nice in bubble wrap, but of course I opened it up to make sure that it looked good. And I gotta say, it is looking really, really nice. Super high quality, but we'll open it up all the way in a second. As you can see, it comes in 3 pieces. So this is gonna be the piece that holds on the license plate and the lights. This will be the under fender part, you know, like under there. And then this will be the piece that connects the 2 of them. So this is just something that I found on eBay from one of those like no-name Thailand sellers. It was listed for the CL500, but I'm sure you know if you're watching this video, the CL500 and the SCL500 are the exact same thing. It's just in the US, they call it the SCL500, and everywhere else they call it the CL500. Typically, anytime you get something from eBay from one of the overseas sellers, it'll take like 3 to 4 weeks to come in, but this actually came in only about a week, which I was super shocked by. So things are starting off promising, and hopefully they continue that way. But you might have noticed that in the box, there are no instructions, so we're just kind of winging it. Okay, I guess first things first, let's figure out how to get the stock fender off. So we'll want to take the key from the ignition, stick it in here, turn it, you'll hear a pop, and then the seat will pop up and back and come right off. Quick little side tangent, that right there is one of the differences between the SCL500 and the Rebel 500 that I love the most. You just use the key and pop the seat right off, kind of like with the Rebel 1100, but with the Rebel 300 or Rebel 500, you got to use like 2 Allen bolts to take out and get the seat off. Super annoying. So I love the fact that you just use a key and pop the seat right off. Also, I feel terrible that I can't remember your name at the moment, but one of my subscribers' daughters actually made this keychain for me and sent it to me, and I use it all the time, and it matches the bike super well. So if you're watching this, thank you. Now with the seat off, it would appear that we just have these 4 bolts right here that we have to take off. I don't see anywhere else that it's connected to, I think. So let's take these off and see if the fender comes off. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah, I think that's all that's holding it in. It's kind of supported still. So it looks like that was holding on the metal bracket, but then the rest of the fender is plastic and still held on by something. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say we take these little push pins out. Let's go, baby! Dude, that was easy as shit. Okay, now you can see the only thing that it's held on by is the wires right here, which of course is all the wires that go to all the lights. And at first I was just gonna cut it off as close to the lights as possible so I had as much wire to work with and just wire everything up while I was on the bike. But you can actually see through there, there's just 1 clip for all of the wires, unlike some of my other bikes where it's like 4 different clips. And it seems like once we take this cover off, we can get to that and just unclip it and do the wiring not on the bike. It looks like a push pin there, there, and there. There we go. And then that gives us more room. Come on, push that in and pull up on it, and boom, we're free. Now we just gotta fish it out. Come on, you little... Damn, there we go. Shazam. I mean, really, does it get any simpler than that? What was the final count? I think 4 nuts, 6 push pins, and 1 electrical connector, and the whole thing's off. Honestly, the trickiest part was just getting this big old connector through that opening right there because the wire for releasing the seat was kind of in the way, but nothing a little bit of brute force can't help. So now with the fender off, you can see that it's mostly just plastic, and then it has this metal brace right here to support the weight of the lights, and then these are all the wires running down here, so we're gonna snip these probably somewhere around here. That way, if we ever need to revert back to stock for some reason, we have enough wire that we can kind of put it back to normal, but we still have plenty of wire here to wire in the new stuff. Although, come to think of it, before we start chopping wires, we should probably mock up the new fender delete to make sure that it fits and looks good and all that before we start chopping into stock wires. So this is what we have when we take everything out of the plastic wrap. Honestly, the finish looks really, really good, and somehow it actually showed up in better shape and less dings than some of the bigger US companies. So, you know, I feel like these no-name eBay companies are hit or miss, but I've actually been having a lot of luck with them lately. So the way that it's going to work is that this is the undertail piece, and then it has spacers to kind of set it off from the frame. These bolts are actually upside down. They'll flip like that and go in from the bottom, and then this piece will mount underneath like that and come out to this piece and attach right there. And then it's nice too because obviously the wire wires will be coming off the back here, so it actually has holes where the wires can feed down through there and then into the fender. It's clear to see that everything will line up just fine, so I guess really all we have to test before we start hacking the wires is making sure that this is gonna fit and cover everything that needs to be covered underneath the fender. So let's get the bolts lined up here. Okay, those are lined up, and then you look down there and yeah, everything's looking good. You can see those spacers kind of make it stand out from the frame so it doesn't hit. There are still the nuts there to hold it in, so obviously it'll sit more flush, but yeah, everything's looking good, so now we can start wiring it up. Okay, so we'll take the end of the wire and fish it through that little opening there, and then it looks like this just pops off, maybe? Yep, that just pops off with a little bit of prying, and then this one looks like it just pulls out also, pulls forward, yep, just like that. That thing slides off that little tab. Then the handy dandy knife, and maybe something like right there. Oh, there we go. Probably a better way to do that. Well, I took the wires that I just cut off and cut the wire loom back and then stripped them down real nice. And then I had this moment of, wait a second, there's no instructions, so I have no idea what any of these wires are. I know Honda uses green for ground, but I don't know which ground is which and which wire goes to which, but I have faith that we'll figure it out. First, we're gonna wanna start putting all of this together, because once we put the light on here, like I said, the wires will pass through here and then through these holes and then through that hole. And once it's all wired in, this won't be able to pass through. So we'll throw all this together loosely, put the lights on, feed the wires through, and then I'll check back once we start wiring. All right, we have a lot going on here, a big old mess, so let me catch you guys up as best as possible. We have the fender together here, and it's looking really good. You guys haven't even seen the tail light or the turn signals yet, but that's what we're working with. It's gonna mount up right like that, and you can see that these wires are actually gonna be able to pass through there, which is gonna be a lot easier than trying to fish it down through that hole again, so that's nice. Rear brake attaches right there with the smallest nuts known to mankind. I think it's like a 6 mil or something. I ended up having to use pliers, and then the turn signals go on right there. They did have some like yellow and black wires I didn't like, so I heat shrunk those and then heat shrunk them into one unit to pass through there. I think it looks a lot cleaner than having this like yellow and black showing. So now all that was left to do was figure out what any of these wires went to, because like I said, I had no idea. So essentially what I did was I dissected the entire stock turn signal assembly to see where all of the wires went. I'm sure some of you guys are going to say I could have used a voltmeter or whatever they're called to figure out what's getting power when certain lights are on, but I just figured this was easier, and now I know what the inside of this looks like. Now you'll probably remember when I saw this one big clip, I was like, oh, that's weird. I feel like normally there's lots of smaller clips. Well, unbeknownst to me, they are all in the stock tail light housing right here. So I guess theoretically you could take everything apart if you wanted to leave these intact and just cut all these wires and wire it in like that, but we've gone too far for that now. It was definitely a little tricky because you can see the wires leading in are different colors than the wires leading out. At first I was like trying to go based off of this, and I'm like, none of these are the same color. So essentially I had to see what was coming out, where it was leading to, and what colors it turned into. But now we got everything marked, as you can see. The green and blue wire paired with the pale pinkish is the left turn signal. The green and black wire paired with the light blue is the right turn signal. And then the green and white with the darker blue and with the pink with blue stripe is the tail light. All of the greens are the grounds. Everything else is power. For the tail light, I'm not sure what's the running tail light and what's the brake light yet, but we'll figure that out. And then of course we have this darker pink with the solid green as well, and that is for the tag light right there. That is obviously separate on the stock unit, but on the new one, that little slit at the bottom of the light is the license plate light, so it just runs off of the tail light slash brake light. So we won't be needing those. Everything else we should have it covered. So now it's time to wire everything in, and I think this is the part that I'm most excited about, aside from seeing the finished product obviously. today because I found a fancy new gadget. So I'm sure you guys have used these before. They're just like the regular butt connectors that you got to crimp down and then shrink. That's what I've used every time I've done an install like this, and I've always wanted to like actually solder it so that it gets a better connection, but I don't know how to solder, and honestly I haven't really had the need to learn how. I don't want to buy all the expensive stuff to figure it out, and I found this. It's called the solder stick, so we're going to try it out today. So essentially how it works is these are the connectors and there's no crimping necessary at all, and it actually has solder in the middle of it. So all you do is slide one wire in until the wire gets to the solder point, slide the other one in the same way so they're overlapping at that solder point, and then you just heat the whole thing up with either a heat gun or a lighter, and not only does it form a waterproof seal, but the solder actually melts and solders the connection inside. So if it works the way that it's supposed to, it's essentially like soldering but without the work of soldering. And of course I tested one out before I committed to it, so I knew if I had to go buy more wire crimps or not, and dude, it's legit. It's kind of hard to tell, but the solder in the middle melted and has the wires totally connected, and then it's still waterproof on the sides. But the real test is going to be how strong it is. Obviously it doesn't need to be much more strong than this, but on their website they show somebody like really tugging on it, so I'm curious if it's actually that strong, that much stronger than a crimped wire. Dude, it's like, okay, I didn't want to like make it look bad if it actually wasn't that strong, but I'm like wrapping. It doesn't come apart. I have indents in my fingers. I am actually shocked at how much force that just took without separating at all. Solder Stick actually sent me all of this for free and agreed to sponsor today's video, so I was a little bit worried. You guys know that I tell the truth and I'm brutally honest about everything, so I was kind of worried that I was going to tug on it and it was just going to snap and I was going to be like, oh, this looks bad. But it's legit. It's really legit. So shout out Solder Stick for sponsoring today's video and for sending me these awesome new gadgets. I'm legitimately going to use these for every electrical job I ever do. And if you want to try them out for yourself, check out solderstick.com. I'll link it in the description, and you can use Birch20 to get 20% off your entire order. As for these things, I'm sure it's safe to say, ooh. Did I mention that I was the Little League MVP pitcher? That's not a joke. I actually was, and then I gave it up to ride BMX because that's cooler. But for real, after that especially, I'm extremely excited to see how well these work. So without further ado, let's see them in action and wire everything in. Okay, I don't want to speak too soon, but that was suspiciously easy. No joke, I got all of that wired in and ate count them, 4 tacos from Taco Bell in less than 21 minutes. Oh, and you have to include the conversation I had with my DoorDasher, who was super apologetic because my order took an hour and a half. Super nice lady. Thank you.
I'm sorry it's late, the traffic was horrible.
You're good, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, wired it all in, had a conversation, ate 4 tacos, all in under 21 minutes. But I don't want to speak too soon until we make sure that everything works, because obviously I was not out here to test as we went, so moment of truth. Okay, so obviously if you can't tell, it's just sitting in a box, it's not installed yet, but it's all plugged in, so moment of truth, we'll turn it on and see if the running light comes on. Ooh, let's go. Now the moment of truth, did I get the brake light right? Will it get brighter when I hit the brake? Let's go. Let's freaking go, baby. Oh, and I can see the tag light. Tag light sucks. It's not doing much of anything, but it is on. Now, did I get the turn signals on the right side? Let's start off with the left. Yeah. Ooh, got some hyper flash though, so we'll probably have to get a flasher relay. And right turn signal. Let's go. So now I can say with certainty that this is exactly how it's supposed to be wired up. I forget if I ever circled back about the tail light, but the running light is the pink and blue wire going to the white, and then the brake light is the red going to the blue. Okay, now that I know that I did it right, let's mount it up. you're putting the push pins back in, you want it popped up like that. And then once you stick it in, you push it flat and that'll pop to lock it in. You want to make sure you're really careful with these last two because they actually hold these side covers on. So you want to make sure that they're pushed up against it and that the push pins slide into where the side covers are. Stutter much? You can see the side cover right there, the thing that's moving, and you need to make sure that the hole lines up like that. Push it in like that and then push that tab flat and it's locked in. And the finishing touch just in the nick of time before the sun goes down. We're done. I said that we were done, but we weren't actually done until now. The more I looked at the bike, the more I realized there were a few finishing touches I wanted to do before actually considering it done. And now 2 days later, I have those complete and I'm super stoked to show you. But before I show you what finishing touches I put on it, let's just soak in the bike and how good it looks now. What a freaking improvement, dude. I knew that the old Fender was an eyesore, but I don't think I fully realized how much of an eyesore it was until we put this on. I'm sure you remember, but the stock Fender came all the way out to here and had the gigantic light and everything, and this is just so much more sleek and tucked away. I could not be happier with the results. And I'm gonna be honest, at first I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it the way that it is. I actually had plans to kind of tuck it up a little bit more so it had more of a streamlined kind of cafe racer feel, but I'm actually really glad that this hangs down a little bit further because it still acts almost like a mini Fender, if you will. If I had taken this license plate and tucked it all the way up here, it would only come down to about here and really wouldn't shelter us. Shelter, is that the right word? It wouldn't stop any dust and water from flinging up on us, but I feel like because this still comes down to here, you can see it might still potentially protect us from some of the stuff that'll fling up. And not only that, but I feel like if we had made something where this was kind of the end of the bike, or even the license plate ended right here, it might look a little bit out of place with how big that exhaust is, but you can see that the exhaust now comes straight to where that light is, and that obviously wasn't planned at all because the company that made this light, it's pictured with the stock exhaust, but it just so happens that the exhaust comes directly to where that light is, so I feel like it fits the bike perfect, and I'll probably keep it exactly as it is. Now I say leave it as is, but like I said, I did already make an alteration to the kit as it sits, so let me show you that. You may have noticed, or you may not have noticed, but these are not the bolts that came with the kit. The bolts that came with the kit were those silver bolts, and honestly, I thought it would be fine because you wouldn't be able to see them too much, but they were just too much of an eyesore with how blacked out everything was, so I swapped them out for these black bolts, and it looks so much better. Not only does the black just blend in with everything, but they also don't stick down as far, and I think it just looks so much better. Before, with the bolts that came with the kit, if you were looking at the bike from this angle or the side, you could really see the silver sticking out, so this black really complements the bike well. And these are actually from the same exact kit that I used when I swapped out the heat shield bolts for the black bolt as well. That kit I got off of Amazon for I think like 25 to 30 bucks, and it's like a 300-piece kit that comes with a bunch of different length bolts, nuts, washers. I'll link that below because it's turned out to be a lifesaver on this bike as far as blacking everything out. And of course, links to everything else will be in the description as well, including the kit and what I'm about to talk about in a second. And yeah, just links to everything will be in the description. Now, speaking of links in the description and what I alluded to as far as the other thing that will be there, I did find a flasher relay to get rid of the hyper flash. I found a plug and play flasher relay that will just plug right in and get it flashing at a normal rate. Obviously, it's not installed yet. I think it's supposed to be here tomorrow or the next day. So if I get that installed before this video comes out, I'll put a clip in right here. All right, so the flasher relay came in. This is what you're gonna need, the custom LED ELFR1. As you can see, it's just plug and play. It's actually the exact same thing that we used on my Rebel 1100. However, as it turns out, this one's not gonna be quite as simple because I took the seat off expecting the flasher relay to be somewhere under here like with the Rebel 1100, and as it turns out, with any of the 500s, it's actually under the tank. So we'll just have to take off this bolt right here with the 12mm socket. This is so convenient. My phone is actually magnetized to the storage unit wall with the quad lock mag case, so you know, uses for a case you don't realize. Now that the bolt's out, we'll lift up the back of the tank from right here and then hold the sides and give it a nice shimmy back. Wish I knew I had to do this so I could have emptied the tank a bit. And with it free, we should be able to just turn it to the side a little bit, the other side. And now with my jacket underneath the tank so that the frame doesn't get scratched, we're gonna come around to this side, and that's gonna be our flasher relay right there. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. You'll wanna pull up and kind of shimmy it off of its little bracket. So the rubber boot slides down off of that little like clip thing right there, which will show that, and you just push down on that little clip and pull up, and it comes right off. Then you keep one hand on your tank and bring one foot over here to kick the new one over so the tank doesn't almost fall again. And then you plug the new one in where we just took the old one out from, and you can see it has that little tab right there that slides into place there. And voila, you can see it plugged right in, and now we gotta test the turn signals. Damn it. Damn it. All right, let's see. And you can see it's flashing nice and slow at the normal stock rate instead of hyper flashing like it was before. So you can see that's the new flasher relay all tucked down in place. And then to put the tank back in place, you'll slide that bracket there over those little rubber round things there on both sides. Then we'll tighten this back down with our socket, put everything back together, and we are done. And the only other finishing touches I put on it, aside from those bolts and the soon-to-be flasher relay, is I came in here and I buttoned everything up with some electrical tape to get it looking on nice and sexy. You probably didn't even notice, but the little montage I did of putting everything together, I couldn't find my electrical tape, so I put it back together with just the wires showing, which would have been fine since those solder stick connectors are totally waterproof, but you know me, I'm OCD. Damn, that rhymed. I gotta keep it looking as stock and sexy as possible, so I wrapped some electrical tape around it and it's looking super, super nice now. And then the last thing to note, which really doesn't matter, but I figured I'd point it out, is that if you have a US license plate, it will only fit the bottom two bolts. For some reason, the top ones don't line up, so I'm not really sure why that is, probably to accommodate other countries' license plates or something, but just be aware that you'll just put the bottom bolts on instead of the top ones or instead of all four. So all things considered, I could not be more stoked on this kit. It looks so damn good and really gives the cafe racer more sleek vibes that I was looking for. Leave some comments, let me know what you think, but I personally could not be more happy. Once again, links to everything are in the description. Thank you so much to Solder Stick for sponsoring today's video, and shout out to the Patreon members for making all of this possible. I know I say this all the time, but I can't say it enough. I could not be doing this without every single one of the Patreon members, especially as winter's approaching and I can't ride and make content quite as much. As views go down over winter, money goes down over winter, and of course, I could not be doing this full time without you guys. Seriously. Make sure to check out patreon.com/LifeOfBurch if you want to join the Patreon fam as well. It's the biggest and best way that you can help the channel, but if you can't, I totally get it. You can also help the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'm out of here. Love you guys. Peace.
Oh, so basic. Hope you play this. Damn, I prayed it. Nice song, and I became this. Oh, souls fake it. Paid those placements. Fuck shit. And I'm still waiting on the brighter days. Been a minute, been rough many times more. And I'm kicking rocks to a sky of gray. Praying hard, talk to me before I'm done for.